21st Annual La Jolla Energy Conference, and it's a great pleasure to have our old friend and board member of the Institute of the Americas, Rene Ortiz, former Secretary General of OPEC. But what I want to talk to you about is your new job, and what you've talked about is sort of your new career in the oil business, and that's your work with Equitable Origin. We know that the importance of oil in our daily lives. It is everywhere. Talk a little bit about that. You've talked about in some of your presentations and discussions here today the role of oil and the role of energy, but you've also talked about what the next 100 years need to be and how the oil business needs to evolve with technology, with stakeholder management, with stakeholder issues. Talk a little bit about oil and how you see it over the next 100 years in what Equitable Origin wants to do.
Thank you, Jeremy. I think the best way to summarize what Equitable Origin is best practices. In other words, the future challenge of the oil and gas industry is to get into this step forward of best practices, because we know that the technology that has been developed, that had been put in place, that is operational. We know that science and technology keeps on trial and error practices, operations, new methods, and whatever. And the wonder is that enough for the industry? And we see that when you look at the world and all the stakeholders, many of the stakeholders are not there.
Define stakeholder, if you would, especially in Latin America.
In Latin America are, for instance, in my view, indigenous communities. And you have the indigenous communities playing a role that the industry is not really visualizing.
The oil industry, you're talking about.
The oil industry. Okay. They are there, but they're not part of that. And I think that Equitable Origin is giving the industry a chance to move forward with this standard, with this type of certification system where the stakeholders are part of it. COICA is a federation of hundreds, I would say thousands of small, medium-sized indigenous communities. And they all want to have a stake. Mm-hmm. They all want to have a say on how do you develop this operation, how this operation could impact upon my habitat, mm-hmm. will impact upon my way of living. So the standard actually is a way to certify that best practices are in place, that companies in the industry in general uses this standard to get a reward in the market. I'll do it right.
What companies are involved with this Equitable Origin effort?
We started out with obviously in Latin America, the role of the national oil companies is unquestionable.
In what countries?
In Mexico. With
Pemex.
Yeah, in Colombia with
Ecopetrol,
and in Brazil with Petrobras. Our talks are just beginning. We're just beginning to show the importance of this standard, this EO 100 standard put in place by Equitable Origin, this company, now, and in Ecuador too. So this will set an example of moving forward. Do we have companies developing their operations with regulators, with authorities, with laws, with regulations and everything else in place? Yes, we do. Mm-hmm. General standards? Yes, we have general standards. Equitable Origin also has a virtue. It addresses to field operations directly. How a company develops their field operation with this standard, which will give them a reward in the market. Mm-hmm. It is voluntary. It is voluntary, and it has to be, so that you can see the commitment of the industry into.
Okay,
It's not an obligation.
sure.
It is a commitment to social and environmental best practices, social and environmental responsibilities.
It's fascinating, and I want to wish
It's
you
a
the
new
best of
venture,
luck.
indeed.
It is a wonderful way to keep in touch with Rene.
Thank you so much.
You've been a great
Jeremy.
friend of the Institute. Thank you. Pleasure to see you here in La Jolla again.
Thank you very much for giving me the chance to put this new concept for the oil industry in the future.
We look forward to many, many more discussions on this.
Thank you so much.